We decided to use Pebble Pad on the postgraduate module as a method of them recording and keeping their personal development and their assessment, so that they could be more creative with what they did, so that they didn't have to just submit a huge word-based portfolio, so that they could perhaps use other mediums to record things. So they could use videos, and they could use podcasts, and they could do photographs, and they could be a little bit more innovative with what they submitted. The students reacted quite well in the whole to using Pebble Pad. However, there was a small proportion of them that immediately decided they didn't want to use it. And most of them, once we actually showed them how to do it, or get them some tuition, or got some of the other students who are keener on it to play with it with them, really got into it. In fact, I've got 3 or 4 good examples actually of their learning that they wrote in their reflective statements on Pebble Pad, saying, we hated this, this was awful, we didn't want to do it, and now we realise that this and this has happened as a result of it, and we really enjoy doing it, and it gave us much more scope. There was probably about 5% of my students that just were adamant they weren't going to use it. And interestingly, that's much more on the professional courses than it is the on-campus courses, which I found quite strange, because most of our professional people are in front of a computer all the time and should have really good IT skills because they're working for large organisations. A particular example would be our payroll professional courses, and bearing in mind that they use a lot of IT equipment to do their jobs, they haven't used an awful lot of applications. I would have thought they would have been reasonably able to do it, but actually a fair proportion of them on that course refused point blank and wanted to submit a written assignment. Advantages to the student with Pebble Pad was that they didn't have a word count limit, they didn't have any restriction on how they did it, and they allowed them to actually create things that were very different to a normal run-of-the-mill assignment. And a lot of them have carried on using it as part of their career portfolio. So they do, as I do with my personal Pebble Pad account, I send links to people who want to see examples of my work, testimonials, etc. And they can do that rather than submitting a paper CV. A lot of the students have found that it's given them the IT skills they didn't have. So it's been an added bonus to the module that they were supposed to be learning. Disadvantages to some of the students were things like their ability to access the internet in certain areas. Not all of them have the fast enough speed to actually do it. Some of them found it harder on Macs than they did on ordinary PCs. There was some instances where the students felt it was stopping them spending time on the learning, and therefore they were having to learn a technology before they actually learnt the subject. So some disadvantages there, and actually the biggest disadvantage to me as a lecturer was marking them takes double the time to marking something on written. However, it's actually much more fun to mark them because you learn so much about the students. What would I do differently? I think I might be a bit more prescriptive in order to save marking time if I look at resource, because some of the students submitted so much that it was hours to mark it. And I kind of thought that they might have used the time more productively doing something else, and I could have definitely used my time more productively than wading through a lot of stuff. So I could have been a bit more prescriptive. Other than that, I don't think I would, because I think they find their own way through it, and it allows them to be independent with their way of assessing, rather than me saying, here is your structure, and everybody's being the same. I would say, play with it, get to know it and learn it a lot more before you stand up in front of the students than I did. I thought I knew how to use it. I didn't know it as well as I should have done. And as I got used to it, I was better. I think I would also involve a specialist in the first few sessions. Advice to a student first using it would be play with it. It won't break. You can delete things, and have a go before you start whinging.